All right, we are recording for the next part of Chapter 5, because remember it's so long I've split it up into multiple pieces. This one starts on, for this edition, here it's easier to look at my notes, page 143 and goes until about page 158. So on 143 is where we have Fezzik labeled so that we're getting his backstory. And then on 158 towards the bottom has Vizzini was waiting for him. So that's where I've stopped. Okay. I actually don't have many notes here. It's a lot simpler a story than Inigo's, so that doesn't surprise me. And also the combat is a bit simpler too, which is also nice because I actually grabbed the prequel trilogy so that I could check on some things. So maybe I may go back and talk more about that because it's just legitimately the description of Inigo and Wesley's fight is far and away superior to what was in Revenge of the Sith. By my memory, I wanted to review it, confirm that. Also knows another thing or two that doesn't make sense there, so I may talk about that later. But this first. So, Fezzik was actually. It starts with his birth, and it describes that, yeah, he actually was not that heavy compared to various other Turk babies that were born then. But he was also, born a little early, so it's like, well, that's why. And also relates, and by the way, I have no idea if this is true. It makes some sense that after birth, a child would lose a little bit of weight, but then come back up. He just started gaining weight immediately, and they're like, well, the doctors were saying, well, that's because he was born early. There's nothing to be concerned about. It then goes on with Goldman mocking doctors that, when they don't know what they're talking about, they'll just come up with whatever the approximate answer is and just say that's it and not to worry. But yeah, at 1 year old, it said that he was 85 pounds. And he just looked like a normal 85-pound kid. He did have a lot of hair, though. That was unusual. Yeah, and then when he was in kindergarten, he was the size of a full-grown man. And he was also needing to shave. But this is also where we start having certain issues for him, because I'm just trying to think of how best to put it. In the movie, you do kind of get a sense of it, but it's a bit stronger in the book that he is very gentle. He doesn't actually want to hurt anyone, certainly not when a child. He very much doesn't want to hurt anyone, but everyone realizes that, and he's the big guy. So they mock him, they insult him, they bully him, and this does include physically attacking him because they know he won't respond aside from going oof occasionally. Well, his parents finally fed up with this, especially his father, who's like, all right, come on, I'm going to teach you how to fight. He doesn't want to do this because he doesn't want to hurt anyone. But the father explains, and this is reasonable. I mean, this is a, for this much, I would say good dad moment. Where it's like, it's not that I'm teaching you how to hurt someone. It's that once you know how to hurt someone, other people will know that as well and leave you alone. Basically, once they know you're going to defend yourself, they don't want to actually get hit. Which is completely reasonable. And that's why I said, yeah, that is a good dad moment. But I do feel that some of how he handles it might not be best. Anyway, because it is... He compels Fezzik to actually hit him in the face. Or to actually strike him. And it's like, I'm just thinking, teach him to make the fist, teach him to how to throw a punch just at the air. That's fine. You know what? We'll work on that. We'll work up to you actually hitting me. But it wouldn't be as funny if that were the case, because he gets hit, he wakes up basically a day and a half later, and his jaw has been wired shut because it has been shattered by this. And so he's decided then, Fezzik's father is a carpenter, he's decided, I'm leaving that business. And Fezzik is all upset, why? What are we going to do for food? How can we live? It's like, we're going to make you a fighter. He's 6 years old at this time. They train him for 3 years, so his first fight, he's 9 years old. And has a mustache. And at this point, there actually is one thing that happened. I wrote it down in there, but I'd rather just try to find it and read it here. I think I'm nearly there. Nope. Okay. So for the first fight against just a local champion, so kind of what Inigo was doing as well, um, he doesn't want to go in there because he's both afraid of hurting the guy, but he's also afraid of getting hurt. Which, I mean, to be fair, he's 9 years old. He has the body of a full-grown adult, though with possibly the muscle density and mass of somebody far larger. I mean, and we do get the line about he doesn't even exercise in this, by the way. Not in the fight with Wesley, but it is in here. But yeah, so I mean, it's not unreasonable that he is not comfortable with this, and also he doesn't really have any footwork. He doesn't know the holds. He always screws them up. All that. So he is woefully not prepared for this, both for experience, like his training, and mentally. But his parents still decide he has to do this. Listen, we're not going to threaten you. We all care for each other too much to pull any of that stuff. If you don't want to fight, nobody's going to force you. We'll just leave you alone forever. Okay? Now, in parentheses, we get Fezzik's picture of hell was being alone forever. He had told them that when he was 5, so 4 years prior. This is full-on emotional abuse, in my opinion. Okay? His parents, do they love him? I don't doubt that. But they are emotionally abusing here, okay? So, yeah. It's easy to feel bad for Fezzik. Because he genuinely is a good guy. And he doesn't understand. And that's kind of going back to what I was saying about the father teaching him how to fight. It's like, if they could better approach it with him as a sport, that it's, yes, you will get hurt, and you will hurt the other guy, but that is not the intention in these fights, to actually cause harm there. That's not quite it. But anyway, he ends up getting beat up a bit, but then he manages to grab the guy and hold him above his head, totally dominates him. And then when his mother says, okay, put him down, he gently rests him down, thanks him, and then it's like, okay, now hold up your hands because you just won. But now he's getting booed. He's a 9-year-old. He hates being booed. And he also already feels bad about the situation, so he's on the verge of tears. And this is what ends up happening repeatedly, because they end up having to go to various towns, never staying long in one, because he's constantly being booed. And the reason why is because he is so powerful that even though he's a child, not that anyone knows that, he's so powerful that he's just seen as the bully, essentially. That he's just intrinsically the heel. Even though that's not who he is as a person. And they just had to go all around, leave Turkey, go to Greece, goes through Europe, eventually even ending up in Korea, which, well, it seems a bit extreme to go that far, but then it is true. I mean, we're already after the discovery of America, so I guess it's not unreasonable that they would have that you do have regular routes over there over land. It is one of those things. I don't know when in history. It just feels to me like it's relatively recent history, and I'm probably wrong on that. That easy access all the way to the Pacific from Europe, going due east. In my mind, I don't see that as being very, very common, or being something that would necessarily be available then. But as I also said, America is a thing. Is a thing known there that you would travel there as Wesley intended to, and then have Buttercup follow. That's like, okay, no, this is potentially 17th, 18th century. So, all right. I guess, yeah, at that point it would definitely be reasonable. Anyway, while in Mongolia, his parents catch a plague and die. He never gets sick. So he's fine, but he's now alone. And he's a teenager at this point. I don't remember it saying exactly when. But he does what he can. Eventually hooks up with a caravan, and the leader of the caravan, the trail boss, might have that wrong, but in any case, the leader of the caravan is like, I'll bet not even all my camel drivers can beat you. Or maybe it is I bet my camel drivers can beat you. Sure, let's see. And now he discovers something. That when he fights a group, and it was 3 at that time, people don't make fun of him. They don't boo him anymore. So he likes that. So that's what he ends up doing. And as is said in the movie, he would beat up gangs for local charities, do things like that. Eventually, he joined a circus, and it was great there. Except he went when he's around 20 years old. I think it even said on his birthday, and he was still doing all this. He is still so massive, even at this point, that people start booing him again. Because it seems, again, he is just the bully here, being a bully here, because he's the biggest and the strongest. Even against a group, they think he's a bully and are booing him. And it's so bad, and especially since the circus is business, they have to fire him, because the boos are translating to everyone else. So now he sits down on a rock in Greenland. The circus leaves, and he's still there on the rock the next day when Vizzini comes and finds him, and promises there will be no more booing, but also basically promises to stay there. So we'll stay with Fezzik, and that's what Fezzik wants. He wants to just not be alone anymore. It is interesting because Vizzini is not a good guy. I do not doubt that he is still going to be emotionally abusive of Fezzik. Not entirely sure how he's likely abusive of Inigo, but it's like his nature would be that. From what we've seen already, where he must always be the one that's right. He is the smartest one in the room. No matter if he's actually the dumbest in the room, he still believes that, and he will say and do whatever to make sure that's the case. So I could believe that he is abusive towards him, but still is. He's the one that's there. So, yeah. But then we get to real time when he comes out from where he was hiding, because he is remembering, his parents told him you always fight by the rules. So he's not going to just surprise Wesley by killing him. But does just like in the movie, throws the rock and it explodes about a foot away from Wesley's head. And a lot of what actually happens after this is precisely what's in the movie. Some of it is a little different as far as their conversation. Yeah, although frankly, I think the odds are slightly in your favor at hand fighting. We already got the line about how, the whole I don't even exercise, and Andre just threw the boulder away, well, the rock away. We already got that line, so it isn't repeated here. I tell you what I tell everybody, Fezzik explained. I cannot help being the biggest and the strongest. It's not my fault. I'm not blaming you. Let's get to it then. So I think, being the biggest and the strongest is not my fault. I think they just combine the two lines for the movie. In any case, it works well in the movie. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. In some ways, this is probably closer to what's in the movie. Or rather, the movie's closer to what's in the book. We also get the whole why do you wear a mask and hood? I think everybody will in the near future, was the Man in Black's reply. They're terribly comfortable. But we do also get to be in Fezzik's head, which is kind of nice, because we've got how Fezzik actually likes him, because this was clearly a good fellow, even if he had killed Inigo. He didn't complain or try and beg or bribe. He just accepted his fate. No complaining, nothing like that. Obviously a criminal of character. Was he a criminal, though, Fezzik wondered? And this gets him to wondering about the mask. And he lets Wesley, fiddle around for a bit, let him test his strength, which was considerable for someone who wasn't a giant, which does make sense. I mean, because Wesley is supposed to be strong. I mean, so he did discipline himself when he was still at the farm. Makes sense he would continue to do that. But it does make me wonder how he would compare against Humperdinck, the whole barrel-chested, barrel-thighed, and wrestling orangutans. Sorry, grappling orangutans. Wrestling and grappling they're related, but they are different. They are different sports. So it does make me wonder. I'd like to believe that Wesley would be weaker than Humperdinck, but that's purely because I still have it in my mind that Humperdinck is an example of that discipline, that physical discipline for exercise and all that, to a grotesque degree, because he wants to kill things with it. There is no beauty attached to that, whereas attached to his desires. Whereas Wesley, he is doing that so that he can't he thinks that Buttercup may find that attractive, but also that would be valuable, like be able to protect her, be able to support her, all that. So he wouldn't go to the grotesque level purely because that would start defeating the purpose of why he is so physically fit and disciplined. Now, one thing that happens, and this is one of those only would happen in a book. Well, it would most easily happen in a book, which is Fezzik starts basically seeing what he's going to do to Wesley, which would include like grabbing him, cracking his back apart, and then ultimately like picking him up, tying his limbs around him, and throwing him into a crevice. Well, what's left of him in a crevice. But that when he first tries, Wesley dodges out of the way because he's very fast. And then this happens a second time, and finally Fezzik realizes, I've been fighting him wrong. I have forgotten that you need to fight a group, which is what he's used to fighting, differently than you fight a single person. And he's having to think about this now. So in the movie, he's actually having this as a conversation, which that's the only way he could do it, because here we're just in his head, and he's thinking about it, and he's trying to remember back to when he had fought champions one-on-one, and eventually, yes, he does remember how to do that, and he starts like changing up his positioning, change up his energy for that. But by this point, Wesley has gotten around him and is now crushing his windpipe. So Fezzik is caught because he can't reach behind to get at Wesley. And even when he tries hitting at the arms, it's not good enough. But that comes a little later, because he does do the whole, like running at a boulder and then turning around, so he smashes Wesley against it. He does that a few times, but Wesley in fact starts holding even tighter. And it's as Fezzik is losing strength that he actually tries hitting, and again doesn't work. So he falls down thinking he's gonna die. But how it describes it is that there is an instant between being unconscious and being dead in this scenario. And once that instant comes, Wesley releases it. And then Wesley, he gets back and starts leaning against a boulder to recover, catch his breath. And he thinks, where's some rope so I can tie him up? Wait, he just break the ropes. There's no point in that. I'll just leave. So we don't get the whole... I don't remember the full line, but the whole "and dream of large women." We don't get that line. I wish that was in here. That would have been nice to have in there, but it's whatever. In a way, even though yes, he is at least in his 20s. He met Vizzini when he was 20. We don't know how many years later this is occurring. But for a lot of how he has been described thus far, since for this part, he's a child. So I can't understand it being, like, even if the thought had occurred to Goldman to write that line in there, it might have been I've been describing him so much as a child, maybe that isn't a good idea to put that in there. Because that might still be how people are thinking of him. Whereas in the movie, no, it's Andre the Giant. It is a full-grown adult. So such a line, it's fine. There would be nothing in there that would be inappropriate. But it could also just be Goldman didn't think of the line. Then Wesley picks up the sword, picks up the scabbard, and runs off. And it even does say here, hang on, wrong page, 2 down and the hardest one to go. Because he knows Vizzini, well, I guess a way to put it is, you know what to expect from a swordsman. You know what to expect from a fighter. But you don't know what to expect from a Sicilian. Not quite. But just, you don't know what to expect from somebody like Vizzini, who tries to be intellectual about everything. So you don't know, is he going to pull out a knife? Might he pull out a crossbow? A bow and arrow? Might he use poison? Although it's Wesley that actually provides poison. So you don't know what he's going to do. He is completely erratic, because not that you don't expect him to do anything physical. So it's like, okay, that leaves him in his mind. The mind is capable so much that, yeah, it would make sense that would be the hardest one to have to deal with. I need to get a drink of water. But, I mean, that kind of wraps up what I want to say there. So I may now, while I start talking again about, Revenge of the Sith. I'm sorry, it's just I really want to talk about some of that, but we'll see. I'll try to keep it short, though. Okay. So, when I read through mainly in 3 places in Revenge of the Sith, and by reading I mean mainly skimming, because I kind of remember where on pages things were, and it was just, like going through trying to spot things. The Inigo Wesley fight is very well written, in my opinion. It has various things to there, including progression, which in the Obi-Wan Anakin fight I feel is totally absent, or at least very largely absent. You don't get a sense of, oh well, he's more comfortable. Oh well, because I'm more comfortable here, I'm gonna try to stay here. Oh, he's more comfortable there, then I need to keep him away from. There's nothing like that in Revenge of the Sith. Crap, I'm trying to. There was another point that I wanted to say along with that, but that's gone from my mind. Anyway, I did notice an inconsistency in what is written, which is like this would be. Even if it isn't an error, it appears to be one. I'm just trying to remember. Oh yeah, that's right. The way I would describe as I looked over it again, the Anakin Obi-Wan fight, the way it's written in there is like it's just somebody watching and calling the balls and strikes. It's just a play-by-play. That's it. So there's no strategy because the narrator doesn't know the strategy. We're not in either of their heads. But in The Princess Bride, with Inigo and Wesley, you are in their heads. That's part of what makes that fight actually so interesting. You're really just in Inigo's head. But still you're getting that information from him. You're seeing what he's thinking. Well, you're reading what he's thinking. You're understanding that his explanation for his thinking as well is there also. And that really helps. It also helps not just because you have that information, but it helps with the progression. Because you're seeing him making judgments. Like, I'll do this. He's doing that. That makes sense. I approve of that. But you know what? I'm going to do this because this is the counter here. And I'm going to... Okay, now I'm seeing he's good here, but I'm going to just keep watching him and all that because I can defend myself. I'm good. But I need to keep seeing what he's doing here and learn more about it. It's like... You have that progression because you're following him. So maybe that is part of the weakness to Revenge of the Sith. That fight, because you're not in anyone's head. And you could be. There were fights earlier in Revenge of the Sith where you are in somebody's head. So that it's not just say, oh, the style isn't there. No, it would have been a choice to not be in their heads, and that is disappointment. Especially because I don't remember if I believe I did say it, I just don't remember how I said it when I critiqued that chapter. That, what would have made it a lot more interesting is if we were in, for part of it, Anakin's head, but have it going between, and this would also help explain how Obi-Wan would defeat him, is that if you have Anakin going between fighting like a Jedi, which requires you flow with the Force, and fighting like a Sith, where he's trying to command the Force, and that he's going back and forth, because, yes, he is now giving into the dark side, so he will use the Force that way, but this is still how he's trained. He's still trained as a Jedi. So this going back and forth would actually be very interesting, because then Obi-Wan could be watching that and trying to figure out, okay, at times he's hyper-aggressive against me, dark side, but he's making mistakes. So if I can just parry long enough against that, I'll find something I can get in there. Whereas when he's fighting like a Jedi, it might be, nope, we're evenly matched. I can't stop him, but he can't stop me. It's like, now he's got a perfect defense, but my defense is also perfect against that. So it's like, that would have been so much more interesting, and it would give how Anakin is being torn apart inside between these two aspects of him, who he has been and who he is becoming and has become. So it's like, that would have been great, not what happens. And it is disappointing, because it also would have been a way to see progression develop in that fight. That doesn't happen. Okay, so that's not, well... Okay, let me see if I can find it, because I want to do this comparison. And I will grant, there's a part of me that I don't like that I'm doing this, because I don't typically consider it fair to pull out another book to do a comparison like this, but I've already done this book, so you can. I've already done Revenge of the Sith, so you can watch those videos. And legitimately, part of the reason why I'm doing The Princess Bride is not just because I have a love for the movie and I wanted to read the book. It's not just that, but it is. I want to compare aspects of it against Revenge of the Sith. Um, so I do feel okay doing this, but I doubt, except, well, yeah. No, I likely won't after this return to Revenge of the Sith. Even if I do start comparing Humperdinck's plan against Palpatine's, I don't have like a spot I could go to in any of the prequel trilogy to really pull out that, like reading things out for this is what how Humperdinck is better or Palpatine's better. Um, okay. So Inigo talking. You are most excellent. Thank you, the man back in black replied. I have worked very hard to become so. You are better than I am, Inigo admitted. So it seems, but if that is true, then why are you smiling? Because I know something you don't know. And what is that? I'm not left-handed. Then he swaps, right? So you got that. But this is after, like, a page and a half. I mean, it's like a page after Inigo scored First Blood, and then Wesley got more aggressive. And we're getting the whole back and forth here, including Inigo explaining how the sudden assault by Wesley, he doesn't actually know it, because he was not entirely familiar with the style of the attack. It was mostly McBone, but there were snatches of Capoferro thrown in, and he continued moving backward while he concentrated on the enemy, figuring the best way to stop the assault. So he's having to think. We have this build up here in the whole, he tries with Tybalt, it fails. Mandalike blocked it. He blocked it. Inigo repeated it again and again, kept failing. Nothing worked. So it's building up that, yes, he is feeling that pressure. And then it's like, okay, I gotta swap because that's the only way I'm gonna win. But he's smiling because he's enjoying it and I know once I do this, I'm gonna win. So that's Princess Bride. So this is Revenge of the Sith. He leaned Dooku into a thrust at Kenobi's gut that the Jedi Master deflected with a rising parry, bringing them chest to chest, blades flaring, locked together a handbreadth from each other's throats. Your moves are too slow, Kenobi, too predictable. You'll have to do better. Kenobi's response to this friendly word was to regard him with a twinkle of gentle amusement in his eye. Very well, then, the Jedi said, and shot straight upward over Dooku's head so fast it seemed he'd vanished. In space, where Kenobi's chest had been, was now only the blue lightning of Skywalker's blade driving straight for Dooku's heart. Takes a while for... But you know, it just... Very well, then. And just swaps... It's like... It is so much more mocking in that than Inigo here. I set the Princess Bride down here. Because, very well, then. It's like, oh, you want me to be better? Fine, I'll be better. That's not what Inigo's doing here. Inigo he's being pressured, but it's like, good. I finally have the satisfaction of going all out on somebody. I can finally pull out my A game. And so he does it, because it's actually enjoyment for him. I mean, if he were to defeat Wesley, he'd probably not want to kill him just because there's somebody out there who can be a challenge to me. I'll still beat him, but there's somebody out there that's challenging me. He'd probably want him alive. He restrain him, but alive. You could understand that. Whereas here, it's like, dude, you kill him, you end the war, and you're holding back? And then it's like, your moves are too slow. Very well, then. And it's like, yeah, you'll have to do better. Very well, then. It's like, this is so insulting and mocking, and I hate it. But there's also... Where is it? I think it's around here. Okay. Your weapons, please, gentlemen. Let's not make a... So this is earlier. This is before the fight starts. Let's not make a mess of this in front of the Chancellor. Obi-Wan lifted his lightsaber into the balanced two-handed guard of Ataro, Qui-Gon's style on Yoda's. His blade crackled into existence as air smelled of lightning. You don't escape us this time. So that's... I don't believe Ataro was mentioned previous to this, but that's all we get for what the style is. Whereas... Okay. They touched sword, and the man in black immediately began the Agrippa defense, which Inigo felt was sound considering the rocky terrain. For the Agrippa kept the feet stationary at first and made the chances of slipping minimal. Naturally, he countered with Capoferro, which surprised the man in black, but he defended well, quickly shifting out of Agrippa and taking the attack himself using the principles of Tybalt. Okay, now, we don't really know much about Capoferro or Tybalt here, but Agrippa is explained. And by that, we then do get an explanation for Capoferro. That is a counter to Agrippa, which apparently the man in black wasn't necessarily expecting, Wesley wasn't necessarily expecting, but he was able to react to it and then shift it to something else that apparently counters Capoferro. Like, that's all in there, and this is all in one paragraph. And that's how these are introduced. I don't recall Agrippa being mentioned at any point earlier. Okay, so we're introduced, and it's like immediately we're getting to know why it would be used. In part because we're in Inigo's head. We are in Dooku's head here, though, so it's not like we couldn't have this explanation. But it's like Agrippa. It's equal jargon. In fact, I think I once heard that these are just made-up names entirely, that they're not real fencing styles. But it still is. That could be a Taro, like what's in Revenge of the Sith. Wouldn't matter. Because still, we get this explanation, whereas instead it's the balanced two-handed guard of a Taro, Qui-Gon style and Yoda's. And that's it. That's all the description we get. Why is this special? What value is there to this? Nothing is there. It's a worthless term. There's value to Agrippa. There's some meaning there. Then later we get a mention of he let the man in black advance. I think I read this in the previous video. He let the man in black advance, let him build up courage, retreating gracefully between some trees, letting his Bonetti defense keep him safe from harm. Again, we don't actually have a sense of what Bonetti is, so this is a little weaker than the previous examples. Well, actually, no, because we may be able to assume Wesley was using Tybalt, Inigo was using Bonetti, so apparently Bonetti counters Tybalt. So, okay, then we have a chain here that we can understand what these are. Nothing about Agrippa that makes sense. Sorry, about Atara that makes sense. As far as what it's doing, Skywalker brought his lightsaber to a Shin ready. Hand of black-gloved Dursteel cocked high at his shoulder, blade angling upward and away. Okay, fine. So he's now apparently like this or something. I don't know. But it's still, like, so Obi-Wan would have been like this. Anakin like this, but it's like, okay, but why are they doing this? You're giving us these names. Why would they do this? What value is it for them to do this in this fight? I got no clue. It's explained here, though. So equally made up terms, potentially, but Princess Bride gives us a meaning to it. They're explained. We don't get that here. And I'm just trying to see, because Dooku's fighting style is also named at some point. I can't remember the name of it. I actually did see it, though, because I needed to look up, and this I can actually find because I made a note of the page. Made a note of the page because this is where when I realized this is like actually there is a kind of explanation, but it's not. It's one of those. Yeah, we can kind of explain, but I don't like the explanation, the possible explanation. Okay. Makashi. Okay. That is the name of Dooku's style, which, I mean, Attack of Clones, the style was more basically just fencing. Because the Jedi, like Obi-Wan and Anakin, were not trained to fence. They were trained to deflect blaster bolts. Here we go. Dooku regarded each of them in turn with impregnable calm. He lifted his blade in the Makashi salute and swept it again to a low guard. Just because there are two of you, do not presume you have the advantage. But what does this term mean? I don't know, and there's nothing in here that explains it. We do get some explanation for Mace Windu's style. That it is about basically his own aggression, but also reflecting his opponent's aggression back at him. So it's not just a fencing style, a lightsaber style, I should say. It's also how he uses the Force when he's fighting. But there's also Yoda's style, and this is actually something, the thing where it's like, okay, we kind of have a problem here. So Obi-Wan is about to face Dooku, right? Which he needs to kill him, or at least capture him. He needs to defeat him regardless. And this is of huge importance, okay? Which he's smurfing it, essentially. He's like not taking it seriously, which is so beyond incorrect. They're not testing. He's mocking him, okay? Let me be clear on that, okay? Inigo and Wesley are testing each other in The Princess Bride, right? They're trying to figure this out. And that's why we have that running commentary, but Inigo is staying in control. He's using that Benetti defense, so Tybalt isn't defeating him, right? But this, it's just very well that I hate it. That's right. So Obi-Wan goes into that, what was it, Ataro, I think? One more page? That's too far. Yeah, here it is. Okay, Ataro, sorry. So what is Ataro? Well, here, just in here we've got, but Obi-Wan talking with Mace Windu and Yoda. But surely, Master Windu, Obi-Wan had said, you with the power of Vapid, or Yoda's mastery of Ataro. I'm probably mispronouncing both these, forgive me. Mace Windu had almost smiled, because this is when they're explaining why Obi-Wan needs to be the one to go fight Grievous. And by the way, I think this whole thing is kind of silly, but I'll get to that in a little bit. I created Vapid to answer my weakness. It channels my own darkness into a weapon of the light. Master Yoda's Ataro is also an answer to weakness, the limitations of reach and mobility imposed by his stature and his age. But for you, what weakness does Suresu answer? Blinking, Obi-Wan had been forced to admit he'd never actually thought of it that way. Which is kind of a problem, because when you think there's all these fighting styles that you would need to understand why one is better than another. But anyway, that is so like you, Master Kenobi. I'm called a great swordsman because I invented a lethal style. But who is greater? The creator of a killing form or the master of the classic form? Which, again, that technically doesn't make sense, but anyway. Basically, what this explanation is giving is, well, here, is it actually up here? No, okay. So basically what they're explaining to Obi-Wan here, and they're building him up in a way that I feel is just worthless. I'm sorry, but it's just like, it feels amateurish. That's like, oh, isn't he just so great? Isn't he just so wonderful? It feels like that's what was happening with Obi-Wan here, and I hate that. Whereas, remember, I pointed out in the previous video with Wesley, he doesn't like fighting among the boulders and the trees. It's cramped there. He doesn't like fighting there. And Inigo recognizes this. Wesley recognizes it. That's why Wesley doesn't let him retreat there once he's actually got the slight edge, because he knows he will lose it. That is so much better, because it's acknowledging that there is a weakness there, but working around it, still applying. And that's kind of what Windu and Yoda have done with their methods here, is that they know they have a weakness, so they came up with a style to counter that, to address that, to solve that. And that is why they're explaining here Grievous would be able to defeat them, because they do have those weaknesses, whereas Obi-Wan is just perfect with a lightsaber. He is perfect. He has no weaknesses. So that's why he's a master of the classic form, which technically doesn't make sense, because that contradicts what's stated in Attack of the Clones. Dooku was a master of the classical form, which was fencing. It's the more modern form, the more modern teaching that's meant to counter blasters, which is all Obi-Wan knows. And Anakin knows. They should have been trained in this, but it's still, this is only like 3 years later. He wouldn't have become a master in 3 years. But there's also this. If he's a master in that style, then why is it that he's about to face off against Dooku, a man he knows handed him his ass mere years earlier? Doesn't matter that he's had 3 years of, well, actually no, he wouldn't have had 3 years of training, because he's been fighting a war, right? A war that at times, if he's using his lightsaber, guess what? It's blocking blasters. It's not fencing. But what does he do? He takes up the two-handed guard of Otaro, Qui-Gon style, and Yoda's. He's a master of this style. I'm going to use a completely different one to fight this dude who I know can beat me. Because he has before. I'm not going to use the thing that I'm the master of. No, I'm going to use that thing. Because that somehow that's going to be the best solution here. What is... The defense I can give for this, and I don't like it, I don't think it's good defense, is that Obi-Wan, and they kind of have this in here, that, well, yeah, I'm very flattered that you would consider me a master, but really not a master, the master, Mesa, and this is what I mean about how they're just talking about, it's like, oh, hey. He doesn't think of himself as that, so he may have just gone to Ataru because he just thought that that would be best, even if it's not, because that's not where he would be strongest. But then there's also 3 years of war. I'm pretty sure it's 3 years. Maybe it's only been 2. It's 2 or 3 years regardless. Of him having to do this. He's going to know what he is best at because that's how he survives. So the idea that he would... which is it now? Is it that he's a master of Suesu? Yeah. Is it he's a master of that, so he should tend towards using that? Or is he a master of Ataru, and he's tending towards that because he thinks that's going to give him his best chance of survival? Because it's not explained here. It's not set up here as though he just will swap to whatever is most appropriate. At least I don't think it is. Let me check on this. I'm trying to remember if they do describe, if Dooku does describe the two changing changing their styles while fighting. Okay, yeah, so Skywalker went from Xian to Gem So, and what is it, as fine a one as Dooku's had ever seen. Well, he was a Gen So stylist. Oh no, it doesn't. Kenobi had become a master of Suesu, but this again, it doesn't make sense based on what we had in Attack of the Clones. So it's like, okay, he somehow became a master of a fighting style in 2 or 3 years while actively fighting a war. When did he do this? Especially remembering that he can only train this against other Jedi. Anakin wouldn't be suitable. Anakin wouldn't have the experience. He'd be limited to somebody like Yoda. Or Mace Windu. Maybe he'd be limited to what some of the masters, you would think. But it's also, it doesn't make sense because there's no reason to believe that Dooku changed from Attack of the Clones. I'm shortening this so I can wrap this up. As I think about it now and was going through this and going between the beginning, middle, and end of Revenge of the Sith with this stuff, it does seem to me, again, you're just contradicting what was put down in Attack of the Clones. Or it is very... You have to do a lot of meandering. No, not meandering. You have to do a lot, like, contorting to get... Dooku is a master fencer. They aren't. That's why he overcomes them. Revenge of the Sith, it's like, okay, Dooku's a master of Makashi, so Makashi is apparently just actual fencing, blade to blade instead of blade to blaster. So it's like, you go with that, but then it's like, well, hang on, if he's a master of fencing, and it is master for blade to blade combat, Obi-Wan taking a different style doesn't necessarily change that. I mean, it would have to be a different blade to blade style, but again, it's I already pulled out the bookmark, but it becomes this whole, again, why is he not able to counter this? And also, what is Suesu? We don't know. There's no explanation. It's just, yeah, I'm just throwing out a word here. I hate that. Whereas here, the swords touched, and the man in black immediately began the Agrippa defense, which Inigo felt was sound, considering the rocky terrain, for the Agrippa kept the feet stationary at first and made the chances of slipping minimal. Naturally, he countered with Capoferro, which surprised the man in black, but he defended well, quickly shifting out of Agrippa and taking the attack himself, using the principles of Tybalt. He let the man in black advance, let him build up courage, retreating gracefully between some trees, letting his Bonetti defense keep him safe from harm. So, Agrippa's explained, Capoferro is a counter, Tybalt is a counter to that, Bonetti is a counter to that. We have that information from what is written here. And then we get to this, where it's like, okay, he was not entirely familiar with the style of the attack. It was mostly McBone, no idea on that. Totally granted. But there were snatches of Capoferro in, which, yeah, isn't that, yeah. Well, Capoferro can counter Agrippa, so it's just these, McBone I got no description for. Capoferro I just know can counter Agrippa, but this is mixed together. Continued moving backwards, because now Inigo is not sure how to manage this, but then suddenly as the cliffs came ever nearer, Inigo realized the fault in the attack that was flashing at him. A simple Tybalt maneuver would destroy it entirely, but he didn't want to give it away so soon. Let the other man have the triumph a moment longer. Life allowed so few. So it's... You're getting this, and there are explanations here. So apparently Tybalt can defeat, at least in theory, it doesn't, but it can defeat this combined McBone-Capoferro, which... Tybalt can counter Capoferro. Okay, so yeah, then the McBone is the thing that was throwing him off, not realizing that Tybalt would be able to counter it. In theory, he's wrong, but still. I don't know the actual stances involved. In a way, it really doesn't matter. But I don't know how these things go against each other. I'm only in a rock, paper, scissors kind of way, but still is, I know. The hell I know about what's in here? Aside from apparently Makashi has a low guard stance, well, a salute and low guard. Okay, they probably all have a low guard. Ataro has a two-handed high guard. It's like, yeah, so they probably all have something that is a high guard. It might not be like that, but they would all have a high guard very likely. And Shien also has a high guard that's over here. You know, or maybe with two hands. It doesn't say it was with two hands, but it's like over there. It's like, okay, so what? Plenty are gonna have that. It might not be like this. It might be, you know, at some other angle, but it's still, so what? Why are they using these stops? This is so much better. Man, it just... I am so happy, and I will try to end it after making this point. I am so happy that deciding that I wanted to read The Princess Bride because of seeing the movie right there, because it's literally sitting right there, and deciding that the way the duel is in there got me thinking about it. It's like, I want to read The Princess Bride now. I want to do that I am so glad I've decided to do that, and I'm so glad I am genuinely enjoying reading it. It is fun to read. The two introductions, bit much. I'll talk about that later as well at the end. But I'll say it here. If you have this edition, the 30th anniversary edition, I recommend skipping the 30th and 25th anniversary introductions and just go straight to what I've labeled Chapter 0. It's just labeled The Princess Bride, which is it is basically the introduction to the story, to the actual story. So it's on page 1 if you look at so it's like 30th anniversary, 25th anniversary, Princess Bride. You'd want to go to that one. I would just suggest you start there and read from there. Read the 30th and 25th anniversary introductions later, afterward. They were boring. They drained my energy for reading. But once I actually, and then the introduction for The Princess Bride was also kind of dry, kind of boring as well. But that's partly on the two introductions. But once we got into actual chapter 1 with the bride, it's like, okay, I'm enjoying this now. So that, yeah. So I am very glad that book angered me enough and made me think enough about Princess Bride that's like, yes, read in. I'm having fun. And I look forward to continue having fun, especially with the next part when Inigo will be going up against Vizzini, which, yes, we know how that's going to go, but to see what differences there may or may not be there. And also what kind of additional background we may get on Vizzini. He doesn't have a label like Inigo and Fezzik did, so in theory we're not going to get much background, but there still might be some. And yeah, that'll be fun. And also this, it's going to be from 158 to 177, and I have labeled Humperdinck there. As I recall, it's after, so we're also going to have Wesley and the Man in Black and Buttercup talking, Wesley revealing himself to Buttercup, Buttercup falling down there with him, and then them escaping from Humperdinck, into the fire swamp. That's where I'll stop. So it's like this next part should also be really, really good. Definitely looking forward to it. Not entirely sure what I will. Well, I'm not entirely sure what will be after that. How the final part, the Humperdinck part, will be. But yeah, I am definitely looking forward to all of it. I'm having a lot of fun reading it. I think I've already said that. I don't have more to say. I just wanted to give a quick prediction as far as what's coming next. But yeah, I shall see you next time.